You're listening to Affected by Altitude, a Colorado Rockies podcast for and by Rockies fans on Rocky Mountain Rooftop. Thank you for joining us as we discuss all things baseball and Colorado Rockies.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Affected by Altitude, a Rockies podcast from Rocky Mountain Rooftop Network, a proud member of the Fans First Sports Network. I'm your host, Skyler Timmons, finally back in uniform, suited up here off the IL. I've been dealing with bronchitis and dealing with other stuff. So, I was visiting family in bronchitis, so it all worked out. But I'm here once again and reunited with partner in crime, Evan Lang.
It's good to have you back. We didn't even have to get a rehab start for you.
Yeah. I'm just that good coming off the bench. We'll see how it goes. Can't do any worse than the Rockies.
I mean, to be fair, we could be doing worse.
This is true. This is definitely true. But remember, Evan, we'll always have those 2 days in March.
Yeah, those were the days.
What glorious days those were.
Where we just came out and shut down the powerhouse Padres, won the first two games of the season, had the Padres fans on Twitter all in a huff, and then it all went downhill from there.
It's all downhill from here. Oh, man. Yeah, it's been rough going of it, but
we got Yamcha'd.
Yeah, we've been Yamcha'd significantly. But it's good to be back in action here. Special thanks to Kenneth and Mario filling in quite a bit, hopping on as a duo to help you out, Evan, while I've been on the mend and doing stuff. But what's up, Evan? What's new since we've last spoken? How are you feeling on this first little bit of the season started?
Bad. The first two games had you feeling hopeful, despite the fact that you probably shouldn't have. And then we lost the second two. It's like, all right, fine. Series split against the Padres. I'll take it. And then just got absolutely crushed in that 2-game series against the Dodgers. Come back home, barely won the home opener, and then got crushed last night by a rebuilding Washington Nationals team that has one of the lowest payrolls in baseball. Mm-hmm. So
what a way to celebrate the 30th anniversary as a team. Fun stuff.
By being about as good as the 1993 team.
Yeah. Well, in some aspects, at least that team had some offense.
Yeah, I don't know when we're supposed to start seeing the dividends from this new offensive philosophy. If there is one. But it's not been great. And I'm not really sure what else to expect at this point. Because you have some guys who have been great. Charlie Blackmon's been solid. KB's been great, though he isn't generating that power yet. Alaris Montero's actually been pretty solid as well. And you had some guys who started great and then immediately fell off a cliff. So CJ Cron won National League Player of the Week and then immediately nosedived to being 1 for his last 20 at time of recording.
Yeah, maybe MLB shouldn't hand out awards after the first 3 games of the season.
Player of the Week.
Yeah. And what's he done since then?
Not a dang thing.
Yeah. So it's rough going here at the early goings. I'm kind of in that same boat. Nice to see some pieces, performing decently enough. Good to see Chuck performing. Good to see Kyle Freeland, who we'll get into here for a second. A lot of pieces in the bullpen have been decent. Could be worse. And overall, there's some good stuff going on, but like you said, it's just more of the same. More of the same that we'll definitely have time to talk about throughout the season as usual. But kick things off here, let's talk about Kyle Freeland and that home opener, especially, and just Kyle Freeland as a whole. Because so far, he's the ace. He's turned out the 2 ace outings in the rotation. Everybody else, as the first time through, is kind of up and down. The second time through, thus far, Kyle Freeland's been the most consistent pitcher on the Rockies right now, and tossed out a gem of a game on the home opener, his third home opener, which is the most in team history for the Colorado kid, which is a pretty nice thing. And it was the 11th 1-0 game in Coors Field history, just the 12th 1-0 game in Denver history and Rockies history. They had one at Mile High Stadium. But Kyle Freeland on the home opener tossed out 6 2/3 innings, solid shutout baseball. Kyle Freeland, we got to be feeling good about him, don't we, Evan?
Oh, definitely. There are some things to be a little worried about. We talked about it a little bit during spring training, but he's seen some steady declines in his fastball velocity, where he's hitting like between 87 and 89, which is pretty low. When he used to be sitting at around 92, 93, but he's making really, really effective use of his other pitches, especially the his curveballs looked really good. His other breaking pitches looked really solid, and now he's turned in the two, I would say, most solid performances of any Rockies pitcher at this time. Ehrman looked great in his first outing of the season, but did scuffle just a little bit in his second outing, which was unfortunately against the Dodgers. But then we have Kyle Freeland come out, and on that Rockies home opener, he throws his second straight quality start, 6-inning plus shutout. He upped the strikeouts much more. In his first start against the Padres, he only struck out one batter, and he walked one batter. And keeping those walks to a minimum is great, because in his second start, that home opener start, he only walked two batters and he struck out five. He gave up a decent amount of contact, but it was all fairly weak contact. And when he did give up hard contact, he had some really great help from his outfield defense, especially Jurickson Profar in that home opener, which was really unexpected. But currently, Kyle Freeland has a 0 ERA and just really has been one of the better pitchers on this team, and pitching really, really well. And you never know, when that's going to come off. But starting the season with 2 straight quality starts where you didn't give up any runs is exactly what you want out of that guy.
Yeah, and I wrote about this, was it last Thursday, filling in for you on the rock pile, and talking about the Rockies rotation. As much as the offense is going to struggle, we'll complain about the bullpen and the offense and everything, but the Rockies' philosophy and the way they've tried to approach their winning baseball these past couple of years has been based on the starting rotation, and they're going to live or die by the starting rotation. And thus far, it's not looking too good with the rotation, just inconsistencies and underperforming. But Kyle Freeland is going to be that constant. He needs to be the leader out there, as he's the local kid. He's got the passion and the vocal leadership that they need. And something that's stuck out to me is, Kyle Freeland's not going to be blowing it past anybody. That's just not who he is ever. Hopefully he gets some more ticks on that fastball as the year goes on. He gets loosened up more action. But I think the growth with Kyle Freeland has been, he's out of the rotation. I think he's the one who fits the mold of, when I think of pitcher and pitching, I think of Kyle Freeland, because he's constantly tinkering with his arsenal and he's trying to outsmart the batters and everything. Whereas in today's game of baseball, pitching is kind of between two things of guys who just trying to blow it right by you, wipe out stuff. And then you got to have your crafty guys, your lefties like Kyle Freeland, who have to a little bit rely more on their technique and their skill set and their arsenal to get you out, because they're going to try to outsmart you instead of trying to overpower you. And think of pitching, there's that difference between pitching and throwing. And I feel like there's a lot of guys in that rotation right now that are focusing more on throwing as opposed to pitching, if that makes sense. But it's finding his spots, and Kyle Freeland's doing good. He's finding his spots, getting his ground balls, getting his fly balls, solid attacking the zone, and limiting walks. And so it's nice to see him come out and perform like that because we need him to do that. We don't need him to be, it'd be nice to have 2018 form from Kyle Freeland, but I don't think we're ever going to get that to that degree again. But they need him. They need this version of Kyle Freeland in that rotation.
And we've talked about this a little bit on the show before, that we're probably never going to see 2018 potential Cy Young finalist Kyle Freeland again. That's just not who he is as a pitcher. I think, unfortunately, it's been pretty clearly demonstrated that that season was more of an aberration. But that's not necessarily the Kyle Freeland that we need as a team. What we need is exactly what you said. The crafty lefty who hits his spots, who gets stuff done, and is going to go out there and tinker and find ways to get guys out. And that's exactly, like you said, what he is doing. And for that home opener, 2 walks and 4 hits in 6 2/3 innings. I'll take that any day of the week with this rotation.
Mm-hmm. And that's something that this rotation, how the Rockies can survive is these guys more or less turning out quality starts. If you can go give the team 6 innings, 2 to 3 runs, keep them in the ball game, and keep your walks down, for goodness sakes. We'll get into that. That's what you need. And Kyle Freeland's, I think, that model of consistency of this is what a successful pitcher in a Rockies rotation can do in a different mold. It'd be nice with a little bit more velocity, but he can get by because big leaguers these days are so used to hitting 96 to 100. You get a guy out there throwing 87 to 89, kind of throws him off a little bit. But he's the leader that they need in that rotation. And I like the comment that he had that it seems that Bill Schmidt is like Thanos with the Infinity Stones, slowly just trying to gather in Colorado-born pitchers and just make them the rotation for the Rockies, which is a weird philosophy to go with strategy-wise. But hey, if it works out, might as well. But
yeah, the Colorado kids in the pitching room have been pretty solid. Where Pierce Johnson has 2 saves, he's been super solid. Ty Block overall has been not amazing, but he's been what we've needed in a long reliever, especially with him having to come in multiple times in long relief for José Ureña, who we'll talk about a little bit more detail later. But overall, they're getting the job done with what they have in that department. So, if you're getting these Colorado guys and it's working, I see no problem with that. Like Case Williams from Castle Rock looked pretty good in his first start of the year with the Hartford Yard Goats. Mm-hmm. And so really what it is, and we talked about the quality starts. So far, 3 of our guys have at least 1 quality start. Kyle Freeland has 2. And the other 2, they don't. And it's been tough starts for them. And I want to start with Austin Gomber, who Gomber has perhaps the most at stake this season of anybody in that rotation. He has to very clearly show that he is a big league starting pitcher. Mm-hmm. Especially with the fact that he's one of the 2 remaining players left from the Nolan Arenado trade. And Gomber's first start of the season was actually not that bad. He gave up the home run, which was not great. But outside of that, he only gave up 4 hits and 3 earned runs total, had a quality start, had 4 strikeouts, only 1 walk. For your first start of the season for Gomber, especially with how much he struggled last year, that is A-okay in my book. I was perfectly happy with Gomber's first start. Perfectly cromulent first start of the season for Austin Gomber.
It did embiggen our hopes in him.
Absolutely. But then you have the first starts and now second starts of José Ureña and Ryan Feltner, and it's like we it's like we talked about in the back end of this rotation, the wheels really fall off. And the worst part of it, I think, so far has been Jose Ureña, where he is not necessarily the number 3 guy, but they have him pitching in the number 3 spot. Was talking with Patrick Saunders of the Denver Post, and he basically said Ureña is the number 4, but he pitches in the 3 spot, so you can break up the lefties and Freeland and Gomber, and that's fine. But even for your number 4 guy, Ureña's been bad, where both of his first 2 starts of the season, he can't make it through 3 complete innings. He gives up 4 or more home runs. In those less than 3 innings, he's throwing 70 plus. He's giving up tons of walks. He's giving up home runs. Ureña's already given up 3 home runs and 7 walks.
With 1 strikeout.
With 1 strikeout. He is not hitting his spots. And the issue with this is, I've said this before, I don't think Ureña's a number 5 guy on most other teams. And we have him in the high back end of our rotation, and he's doing the same things. He did the same thing in both of his first 2 starts. And Buddy Black was like, oh, well, he needs to live down in the zone. He's getting too many pitches up in the zone. But the issue is, it doesn't matter if you live down in the zone when you're not hitting your spots. And he's not doing that at all. And at this point, if you give Jose Ureña a 3rd start next time through the rotation, I think that's just incredibly foolish. Definition of insanity. Of now, we've had the same result 2 straight starts for Ureña. We already know that this season is not going to be a season of contention. Put somebody else in that spot. Let Connor Siebold give it a try. Heck, let Ty Block give it a shot, because Ty Block has had to pitch 2+ innings in relief of Ureña both of those starts now. Call up Noah Davis. Do something, because Ureña's clearly not the guy. And Skyler, you said something about this on Twitter, where it's pretty clear why Ureña is only getting paid $3.5 million when a lot of the other starters on the market are making a lot more.
And like that's we talked about before, the Rockies, I think, just got priced out of the starting pitching market, because you look at all the available starters that were out there. Those guys, most all of them were getting 1-2-year deals, 10 million a year. And then the Rockies trying to go bargain bin shopping for a guy that did really good or was serviceable in his time last season, which, Ureña was. We saw what he can do when he's just pounding the zone, though. And I think he just he's gotten complacent, or I don't know what happened with spring training and these early starts, but he's not throwing strikes. Either he's overthrowing and he's missing the zone completely, because, a guy that works down in the zone, that's where he lives, getting ground balls. But the problem is when you're throwing those and you're not getting chases, because you've been doing the same exact thing for 9 years now in the big leagues, and he's doing the same exact things, and we know how good scouting from other teams is against us. It's just not working out for him. And so, I think it's him and Ryan Feltner are kind of more or less on the hot seat here in this month of April, of who's going to lose their spot when Antonio Senzatella comes back in a month, because he's making his strides. He seems to be on schedule to start next month in May. Who loses a spot in the rotation when he comes back? I think that's the question. Does Ryan Feltner, if he continues to struggle and things unravel, and he can't throw strikes, does he get sent down? Does he get moved to the bullpen? Or does Ureña get moved to that bullpen? Because I think the writing's on the wall that Connor Siebold's probably going to get sent down whenever Senzatella comes back, probably. But what happens between these two guys, between Ureña and Feltner? And so far, I think Ureña hopefully should be more on the hot seat, because you don't have as much stake in him, where he's a pretty easy DFA in a month. But knowing the Rockies, he's going to keep getting as many chances. No, I think that's same old thing. They just
Yeah.
keep doing the same old thing. We'll we won't go off on that tangent. Same thing with offense. They preach something new, and then execution, they're just doing the same old thing. No,
What worries me about Ureña is that the Rockies are paying him more than they are paying Ryan Feltner. And I'm going to be honest, I don't know how many options Ryan Feltner has left, minor league options, but
probably
I
one.
definitely can see this organization going, well, we're paying $3.5 million for this guy, so we want him to keep getting these starts, which is a very flawed reasoning. And I'll be clear, I don't know if that's what the Rockies will do. I just have a bad feeling about it, especially when he's already overpaid. Like that is too much for Jose Ureña. So like it was he and Chad Kuhl we had to decide between. We picked Ureña. Chad Kuhl got signed by the Nationals on a minor league deal,
and he's making a cool $2 million now since he's on their roster.
And Kuhl will actually be starting tomorrow against the Rockies, which will be interesting. I'm curious to see how he does because his first start wasn't great, but now we've got 2 consecutive just rotten starts from Jose Ureña, and it's really frustrating to think, like you said, they're just going to keep sending him out there and giving him these chances, and it's definitely making me miss Antonio Senzatela, and I really hope that he's a big boon for this rotation when he comes back, because without Ureña, for me, the rotation is pretty obvious, where it is Herman, Kyle, Senzi, Gomber, because you still have that righty splitting up the 2 lefties. And then I would still say Feltner in the number 5 spot, because this has got to be a really big evaluation year for Ryan Feltner, where it's the same as Austin Gomber. It's time to put up your dukes and see what you got, versus we know what we've got in Jose Ureña, and what we've got isn't particularly good.
And I wonder if one thing that they should maybe do is, skip over Ureña and not have to run him out every 5th day. And saw some people throwing this out on Twitter. Skip him for his next start. Let Connor Seabold pitch, who's barely done anything since the season started, which isn't a good sign for him, because we know what's going to happen when he does come out for some extended time. He's probably going to get lit up, and then everybody will throw up their hands. Rockies are like, oh, he's not good enough, so let's send him down, when you don't give him an opportunity. But maybe skip over him. Somebody's got to do something with this team, because they're just doing the same old thing. And that pitching rotation, the Rockies did nothing to address it. And we all knew it was a weakness going into the season again, and nothing's changed with that. And that's just rough to see and kind of frustrating for all of us, because they spent all that time trying to focus on the offense, on the bullpen, but then they didn't address the one thing that really needed a boost in that starting rotation. And Jose Ureña was not the answer. He was a good fill-in last year. He was not a good fill-in for a team that thinks that they can contend in 2023 in some capacity. It's rough. I'm trying not to get super angry about it, but it's hard not to.
And with Connor Seabold, he has 1 appearance, and it wasn't a great appearance. I'll be honest with that, but he came in, and I think it was April 3rd, where it was already a disaster. The game had absolutely turned into a total disaster, and his first inning of work was fine. And then things sort of fell off the rails from there, and we haven't seen him since. And that's really weird to me, because I think it definitely shows how the Rockies favor their pitchers in this in this on this pitching staff, because you have Jake Bird, who got ran out 3 times in the first 5 games, and in that third time had an absolute meltdown where he pitched basically 1/3 of an inning, and it was so brutal. This was Ryan Feltner's first start. He admittedly, there was a bad call from the home plate umpire that caused Feltner to walk the bases loaded. And it should have been a strikeout. That should have been the end of the inning.
Into the
Fine.
inning with stranding Freddie Freeman at second.
But then to get that third out with the bases loaded, they sent out Jake Bird, who just completely imploded. And they left him out there, and he faced multiple batters. And I kept wondering, it's like, this game is lost. It's the third game of the season, and you have an off day after tomorrow. Why is he still out there? Just put somebody else in. And after that complete implosion, Jake Bird's had several more outings, and he's been fine. So, like, we know that it's not necessarily a huge issue, but that was a bad outing. Versus Connor Siebold, same day, bad outing. We haven't seen him since.
Yeah, that seems weird. I'd really like to sit down and just figure what is their plan of attack or their philosophy with how they run guys out.
It seems like they don't really have one.
Yeah. There's a lot of questions that we could ask the Rockies, and I think that would be the answer. How do you hope to generate more offense? I don't think you really have a plan.
And, like, there's been some guys in the bullpen who they keep throwing out there, and that's obvious why you do it, because they've been fantastic. Justin Lawrence has looked amazing so far this season. That slider of his is art. It is so nasty, and it's been great to watch him develop as a pitcher. But then on the other hand, you have Dinelson Lamet, who now has 3 outings, same as Justin Lawrence, and Lamet has struggled. He's not looked as good as we saw him be last year. And then you have Ty Block. Ty Block's had his 2 outings. Brent Suter's had his 2. Everybody has in the bullpen at least 2 outings except for Connor Siebold. And that is really odd, because this is a guy who you liked enough to obtain, and you liked enough to put on the opening day roster. And you know that this team is not a competitive team, no matter who in the front office deludes themselves into thinking so. So why is he not out there at all?
Like, if they're trying to hold on to, he's the emergency, the emergency starter to save our other arms, eat up some innings. Well, there's plenty of opportunity. Keep one of these guys on a shorter leash. José Ureña, get us 3 or 4 innings. Do a piggyback system or something for one of these guys. They can experiment some more, because Connor Siebold, give him a chance, see what he can do. Maybe in a start, what he can do in 3 innings of work. Something like that. I don't know, but it'd just be nice if we didn't just keep having these same conversations, because it gets tiring.
I mean, and this is a conversation we've already had this year of there are no reinforcements coming before Senzatela is back.
Yeah.
You have maybe Noah Davis down in AAA. That's it. Carl Kaufman is not ready. Jeff Criswell is not ready. They need to keep getting their regular reps.
Yeah.
So there's nobody else.
Yeah. But they keep looking towards the future at the expense of what's happening in the present, which then they keep trying to focus on the present. I don't know what their perception of time is, or how they view the timeline of life, because it's just all over the place.
It's something. And it's like, it's kind of funny, because it's very clear the Rockies have a very skewed perception of time, not only based on this, but also like how they look at their past and their future as an organization. Like the sections of time that they very clearly favor in the organizational history over others.
Mm-hmm.
The certain players in their organizational history that are favored over others, and then they apply this on a game day level.
Mm-hmm. It's weird, man. They
The
are
Rockies are a weird team.
they're so weird. Which always makes you question of why do you follow them? Why do you the Rockies make you question some things about yourself.
Well, the answer to that question is because I've made a lot of poor life decisions and I might as well stick with them.
I guess so. That's how it works. But I think the fact of the matter is though, is and this there's just all aspects of the Rockies that just aren't working. And I think pitching is the one that sticks out the most because that's the one they try to spend so much time focusing on and improving and trying to solve, which I think if they would really try it out, and we've talked about this before, that they're scared of another Mike Hampton situation or something like that, where we can't pay a guy a lot of money to come pitch in Colorado as a starting pitcher because it just won't work. But if they would, I think, try harder with the development and studying and with their analytics and really get into the root of the problem of how do you pitch for the Colorado Rockies? How do we build and develop successful pitching? Not just because they started the season on the road, so we can't blame Coors Field effect there. And we just had Kyle Freeland throw 6 2/3 shutout innings at home for a 1-0 win. We know it's possible, and I think they use that fear of spending that money, that commitment to a guy, and then are afraid and keep using Coors Field and altitude as an excuse for pitching, which I think if they try hard enough, they could figure it out. Because look what Josiah Gray and Mackenzie Gore just barely did.
Both looked fantastic. And I have a hot take because you brought it up. I think the Rockies gave up too soon on Mike Hampton.
Yeah.
Because
you need to give him, he needed at least 3 to 4 years of that deal.
Give him some more of that deal because he never really even had the time to acclimate to pitching at altitude. And you combine that with the fact that it's the very early days of analytics, and you know that the Rockies are late adopters to that kind of thing, where you could have been working on with Mike Hampton, reconfiguring his approach and seeing what you can do to make him successful. Mike Hampton was an all-star with the Rockies. People forget that. He wasn't in his first year that bad. And his second year, not great, fine. But you signed him to a huge deal for a long period of time and gave up after 2 years. And that one transaction has colored how the Rockies do things from a pitching standpoint for over 20 years now.
Yeah. And I think that's a lot of things. They give up on guys way too quick. They rush them into things and they immediately regret it. I think of Drew Pomeranz. I was excited about Pomeranz, and I think he kind of got rushed up a little too quick, and then they gave up on him too soon after that. And then that turned into Brett Anderson and that weird rabbit hole of trades.
You could even say the same thing of Darryl Kyle, where they signed him and then they gave up on him very, very quickly. And you see them give up on prospects or have guys that fall out of favor. And it's so bizarre. It's so bizarre the way this team conducts itself, because like every team is going to say, all right, I think it's time to give up on this guy. But I feel like the Rockies' measurements for giving up on a guy and how often they seem to do it are very strange.
It's a little inconsistent of who's getting given up on, because we look at Jose Ureña. I don't think they're giving up on him.
Well, it's even like last year they had seemed to give up on Austin Gomber because it wasn't that far into the season when they took away his rotation spot and they gave it to Jose Ureña. When that was another year last year where there were no expectations for this team. And you could have just worked it out and seen what happened with Gomber.
Or like tandem the two, like we were saying, maybe we don't need to roll him out every single 5th day. these guys can kind of piggyback off each other. Okay, you're going to start this time around. You're going to work out of the bullpen this day,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
then flip flop that way, kind of a pseudo 6-man rotation.
You could even do
Something
an
like that.
actual 6-man rotation.
I don't know if our starters could hold that up for a bullpen though.
You never
Unless we
know, but
Harold Castro get more relief appearances, turn him into a two-way player.
it'd be interesting at least. Like
Be
that's the
something.
thing, is when the Rockies are doing the same thing again and again, it's not particularly interesting. But if they did something really wacky, like hey, Harold Castro is going to be a two-way player now. Okay, I'm
Let's
down.
do
I'll
it.
watch that.
Let's do it.
You want to get nuts? Come on, let's get nuts.
The Rockies pitching needs to become Michael Keaton and Batman, or just Michael Keaton in general.
I don't know. It's this team is weird and frustrating, and it's been a weird and frustrating first couple games.
Mm-hmm. And we'll have plenty more conversations like this throughout the season, probably. But man, what a sign of the times. We're in the third regular season episode of the season, and we're already having conversations like this. Ugh.
It
Fun
do be
stuff
like
ahead.
that sometimes.
Oh man. Anyways, we're gonna go ahead and take a quick break here, and then when we come back, we'll talk about our new buddy in the outfield, Jurickson Profar, and then we'll continue talking about some of the Rockies' 30th anniversary plans that they announced at the beginning of the year, and whatever else comes to mind. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Hello and welcome back here to Affected by Altitude. We're keeping things rolling on here as the Super Mario Brothers. You can call us on the double. You'll be hooked on the brothers. Anyways, do the Mario, Evan.
I just don't even know what to say to that. Like that was not a reference I was expecting to come up in a podcast recording today.
I got Mario on the brain. Anyways,
Look, we're gonna swing our arms from side to side.
come on, it's time. Go do the Mario. All together now. Do the Mario.
Take one step, and then again.
Let's do the Mario all together now. Do. Anyways, let's get back into talking some baseball here because I could sit and talk Mario Brother references all day.
Give us a new Mario baseball game.
Oh man, there's a rumor that there is one being made, Evan, and
Please.
I want it. I need it.
Two of the most fun baseball games you will ever play.
Absolutely. To this day, I still play against my nephew on the on Mario Super Sluggers, the Wii one, and that little jerk cheats so much at that game.
but you have to let him do it, because he's a child.
He's almost 13 years old and he still beats me.
Oh, then no excuse.
Yeah, little punk cheats. I know it. I know he does. He does something. He cheats.
It's rigged.
Anyways,
he makes you use the third-party controller.
Oh man, he cheats. I just know he does somehow, some way. I don't know how he does it, but he does. Anyways,
if you're listening, Skyler's nephew, stop being such a cheater.
Yeah, Tommy. Anyways, let's keep it rolling here. We talked all about pitching in that first half, and now let's talk a little bit about some offense. And particularly, we want to talk about our new friend in left field. Made a strong defensive first impression in his first home opener as a Rocky. The offense hasn't shown up quite yet, but Jurickson Profar, not sure yet. It's the jury's still out on him. But so far in that first home opener game, and I think as a whole, in the little bit of time he's been with us, the 5 games he's played, solid defense thus far that Jurickson Profar can provide to the Rockies in left field, which is a welcome surprise. He had 3 incredible catches on opening day at Coors Field, including a kind of a robbing a home run, a couple of diving catches in left field. So the glove has shown up, offense hasn't quite yet. And your first impressions here, Evan, of Profar in his first couple of games as a Colorado Rocky?
Incredibly frustrating to watch at the plate. I'm trying not to jump the gun too much because I know that outside of playing for Team Netherlands in the World Baseball Classic, Profar basically had no spring because he hadn't been signed. He played a little bit for Kingdom of the Netherlands and then went straight back to doing nothing until the Rockies signed him. And of course, you had to have him take the sort of extended tune-up in Arizona after the Rockies started their first series. He joined the Rockies, and I think it was the last game of that Padres series.
I think that's when he finally suited up.
But defensively, it's exactly like I said, totally solid. And that was one thing I said about the Profar signing when it first happened. Some of the detractors were like, "Oh, he's a bad defender." He's not a bad defender. He's a fine defender.
Slightly above average is what
he is adequate. He will get the job done in left, and I would much rather have him in left field than Chris Bryant.
And I think Chris Bryant would agree with that sentiment.
The issue is the bat right now, where he has only 2 hits out of 20 at bats, and he's drawn 1 walk. He's not striking out a ton. He's only struck out 5 times, so it's not great, but it's not terrible. It's a 25% strikeout rate. That's better than like Ryan McMahon right now, who's been striking out a lot. But he's hitting 100, 143, 100, and has an OPS plus of -33 right now. And I know small sample size, it's earlier in the season, but we need him to start getting acclimated and fast, especially with this Rockies offense where it has been a lot more of the same despite the new hitting coaches and some of the new faces. Lots of strikeouts, low scoring games, not capitalizing on runners in scoring position.
Yeah, and like we said, I think Profar needs to just have the benefit of the doubt for now, because like you said, it's only 20 at bats, played 4 games in the World Baseball Classic, and then a couple of minor league games in spring camp, in the minor league camp to end March, and then join the Rockies on the road. And so I think he's still just getting acclimated, but if he's still hitting like this, early part of May, that's when we're going to start having problems, I think. And as of today on this recording, April 8th, on this Saturday that we're recording in the afternoon, he's not in the starting lineup. Looks like Harold Castro will get the start out in left field. But I think Profar, once he gets more acclimated and kind of ingrained into the team, because he is the new guy that just kind of randomly showed up, so he hasn't acclimated everybody. But I think once he gets comfortable, those hits will start coming a little bit more because he does have that useful bat. He's got the power potential in it, a switch hitter, and that good sign. He's not striking out a ton, so he's at least putting the ball in play. Hopefully those things will start getting a little bit better once he gets a little bit more adjusted and warmed up to the season, because I can't imagine just jumping into a major league season without really any spring training whatsoever. I think it's just bad timing with everything, and kind of makes you wish that the Rockies could have just signed him to a minor league contract with the $8 million or whatever they're paying him. Put that as kind of the bonus if you make it to the big league club, which they could have told him, like, yeah, you'll make it there. But maybe work the system where he could sign a minor league deal and then get some time down in the minors with Albuquerque to get warmed up, and then call him up, after a week or so and see after seeing how he does down in Albuquerque. Because that signing with everything, they couldn't replace him on the roster. They couldn't put him on a whatever. So I think it's just bad, unfortunate timing, and that's led to some lackluster batting results thus far. But at least it hasn't hurt his defense.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I was going to say, is that him being signed to a major league deal and he doesn't have any options or anything really hurt for the first couple games of the season because we had to run with a short bench and he's not getting regular quality at bats, and basically it was a lose-lose scenario.
Mm-hmm. But so I do have hope for him though, because I think a lot, like we talked about, we're okay with this signing. We kind of liked it after Sean Bouchard goes down, but we're gonna need him to. They need him to figure things out here, pretty soon, and get some better looking at bats, where he's then starting to hit line drives, lift the ball a little more, and hopefully those hits start tallying up. Because as soon as he comes in and hits that home run, open the floodgates, and that would be nice. It would be very nice, Evan.
It really would. Just a little bit more productive at bats in terms of really anything, because what we've seen this year is the offense is really not improved. We had CJ Cron, and in that first Padres series, we ran up the bell and we had like 5 home runs in those first 2 games. And then since then, we've only had 2 home runs. The Rockies have 7 total home runs, 3 of which are from CJ Cron and 2 of which are from Ryan McMahon. Charlie Blackmon has 1 and Alaris Montero has 1. Then nobody else on the roster has 1. None from Elias Diaz, none from Chris Bryant, none from Tovar. You don't expect home runs from Jonathan Daza, but none from him. None from the bench. And the bench players, what's really interesting is that the bench guys actually aren't getting that much in terms of playing time, which is not what a lot of us expected. It's been firmly the same guys running out there every day. Mike Moustakas only has 10 plate appearances. Alan Trejo only has 6, and Brian Servant only has 2.
Yeah, and that's kind of the nature of having the DH now, where not as many pinch hit opportunities. And I guess we will say, though, that Alan Trejo at least gets his defensive reps in like the 8th or 9th inning, in place of Montero at third base.
Especially if it's a close game, they will yank Montero and put Trejo in at third, which doesn't say a lot for how confident the Rockies are in Montero's third base defense. He's been fine. His throws have been a little all over the place, which is a problem, where he's rushing his throws or overthrowing a little bit. But the defense hasn't been great, but it really is the offense just continuing to leave a lot of runners stranded. And the home opener, where the Rockies won 1-0, just the 11th time in Coors Field history where it was a 1-0 game. It's not like the Rockies weren't on base. They had 9 hits and multiple walks, and they just did not accomplish anything.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing, is it's just the lack of execution in those big spots. And I think there's a thing showing that the Rockies are really at the bottom of the league, and they're not walking as much. They're striking out more than everybody. They're chasing a ton more than everybody else. Problems that we thought Hensley Mullins was addressing in spring training. They talked about the fundamentals, and we could see some of those dividends in spring training. But then as soon as the season started, after those first couple of games, it seems all that philosophy and new hitting philosophy and preaching and everything is just gone out the window, and they're just back to their same old method of hitting, which is just go up there and try to hit the ball, swing it, whatever, and try to make contact. And for a lot of those guys, we're seeing guys like Chris Bryant, who's on an 8-game hitting streak to start the season, has a hit in every single game. That's the longest of his career. Him and Charlie Blackmon are throwing out some really good professional at-bats, which are good to see. But then everybody else is just kind of go up there free swinging as normal. It's as if Dave Magadan's still down there in the dugout. Yeah,
and it doesn't help when Jonathan Daza is striking out more than expected, and Ezequiel Tovar his bat's really just not acclimated yet to the big league level. And he's one of those guys where, they're letting the rookie play, and defensively he's been super solid. It's just letting his bat continue to develop, and they're giving him regular at bats, which is great. It's exactly what you want. Tovar is again starting at short today. He's, I think, started all but one game at shortstop so far this season.
Mm-hmm.
But you combine that with the fact that pretty much everybody on this team has 7 or more strikeouts, except for Jurickson Profar, who has like 8 or more less plate appearances than most of the other guys on the team, and Charlie Blackmon. Mm-hmm. Charlie Blackmon is the lowest strikeout total on the team right now in terms of starters, with 3. And then Profar has 5. Everybody else has 7+. And I know it's early. We're in not even the second really full week of the season. But we need to start seeing something.
Yeah, they've got to clean things up, because this offense, we want that offense to get back to what it was. I think a lot of us are just sick of them struggling to put runs up, or putting runs up too late when it's already lost. Yesterday, or in that game against the Nationals, they crawled back, but it's just too late and running out of time, as then the Nationals tack on a couple more and run away with it. So you need the pitching and the offense to come together at the same time. That's been a problem for 30 plus years with them, is just no balance. When there's good pitching, hitting's awful, and you end up with a 1-0 victory at Coors Field. Pitching's terrible. You put up 5-6 runs, but you still lose the game.
Yeah,
so,
and in that home opener, the pitching was excellent. Kyle Freeland was excellent. Justin Lawrence was excellent. And then you had Pierce Johnson come in and get a save with 2 strikeouts. Really, really solid pitching. And then you just couldn't deliver when it came to the offense. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, and I hate to say it, all we can really do is wait and see, because it is so earlier in the season that you have to give them some time to turn things around. But it's the same thing we said, that if this kind of thing is still going on when we get to May, we're in trouble.
Yeah. You got to figure out a way to find that balance in that offense, because you can't go through streaky things like CJ Cron gets off to a bombastic start to start the season and then goes 1 for 20 something the next week. No, that's not good. We don't want to push it all on Chris Bryant, but we need him to start hitting with a little bit more power. We need a little more power out of the lineup, less strikeouts, more balls in play, and then execute with guys in scoring position. Stop stranding them out there. They're lonely. They want to come home. Stop stranding them out there. Man.
And it's very, very similar to how things were last year, where the Rockies had one of the best team batting averages in the league, and one of the worst scoring offenses in the league. And we're at a point right now where today, April 8th, Rockies have a run differential of -14.
Woo.
That's not good.
Recipe for success.
So we need to figure something out.
Yeah, because it's very disheartening when you see the offenses of other teams and what they're able to accomplish against us. And you just think, man, I wish we could be doing that. I wish we could have a guy hitting 2 triples in a game.
The Rockies have given up 2 triples to the same guy twice now this season already. James Outman in Los Angeles, and then CJ Abrams had 2 triples in last night's game. I've never seen that happen before.
It's like when Trey Turner or Will Myers just kept destroying us at Coors Field. Or Trey Turner keeps hitting cycles against us.
And what's really frustrating is that we're seeing other offenses of teams who are expected to be in the doldrums like us,
Mm-hmm.
and they've been pretty fun to watch. The Pittsburgh Pirates are off to a really fun start this season, and they're, expected to be bottom dwellers just like we are. Connor Joe had like a 4-hit game where 3 of those hits were doubles with Pittsburgh. And they've got guys like Brian Reynolds.
Mm-hmm.
And then even look at the Nationals. The Nationals are a rebuilding team with an extremely low payroll. And look at what they did to us last night, where they clobbered us. And yeah, a lot of that has to do with the pitching performance of Jose Ureña and parts of the bullpen, where we gave up 19 hits to the Nationals, which is too many. But they scored 10 runs on us, and we scored 5 runs, but more than half of those runs didn't come until when the game was already winding down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's Hensley Mullins is really got to show that it's not an organizational failure for hitting, which is what it's kind of looking like, and show that the hitting coaches actually do have an impact. Otherwise, it's going to kind of point back to there's just an organizational problem with offense and everything else. Because I believe in Bam Bam, but thus far, not looking good.
You just know they're going to hit.
Yeah, that's baseball. Anyways.
Say the line, bud.
That was a very, very good reference there from Evan on Twitter.
I thought you'd get a kick out of that one.
It worked so perfectly because then I watched the clip of Bud Black's press game conference and he says that. I'm like, oh, man.
I love Buddy Black, but I am so tired of especially after a bad performance by somebody going, oh, that's baseball.
Do we have a t-shirt of that yet? Has anybody made a t-shirt?
We could make a t-shirt for that.
That could be our first bit of
coming soon to the Rocky Mountain Rooftop Store. That's baseball.
Yeah, we need to start making merch. That would be sweet. I'd wear a t-shirt that's just him shrugging like that's baseball. Anyways, before we wrap up here, last thing we want to talk about, like we've talked about, this is the Rockies' 30th anniversary this season. I'm glad to say I'm younger than the Rockies.
I'm not.
I'm at least 3 years younger.
Whippersnapper.
Yes, with the body of a 75-year-old. But there's something we talked about earlier during like spring training stuff, that it didn't seem like the Rockies had many plans for their 30th anniversary, because we saw what the Marlins were doing with Flashback Fridays. They wear their old Florida Marlins uniforms, which look fantastic.
They're so good.
And then they're having alumni, every Friday home game throughout the season. It's not just bits and pieces that or throughout the season, they'll have their alumni coming in, all this special Flashback Friday stuff. Rockies finally announced something March 29th, and they announced their plans throughout the season, which it's kind of barren, but at least they're trying to do something.
It's where better than nothing, because for so much of that off season, they gave us nothing.
Yeah. And from what it says, they will have Rockies alumni will be invited back for a series of games throughout the season. Each game will celebrate the alumni's contributions to Rockies history with a pregame recognition, video and content highlights, and 30th anniversary themed giveaway items. And then they were very excited that there will be a drone show August 19th to celebrate 30th anniversary. But I'll kind of run down this list here for you, Evan. Sunday, April 9th, they just having their 30th anniversary of the first Rockies home game in Colorado. I wrote about that game over on Purple Row, about Brian Smith throwing a gem at 37 years old. Then the next thing isn't until Sunday, May 28th, where they will have Brad Hopp, Jason Jennings, and Ubaldo Jimenez scheduled to appear, giving away a baseball card set, 30th anniversary. Then it's June 11th. Aaron Cook and Clint Hurdle will be the alumni, and they're giving away a 30th anniversary trucker hat. Then Sunday, July 30th, Pedro Estacio, Jorge De La Rosa, and Carlos Gonzalez with a cargo snapback hat. Then Saturday, August 19th will be Todd Helton Day, more or less. That's going to be the good promotional item, Evan. I think it's a 30th anniversary Todd Helton jersey.
And it's a black vest jersey, a jersey
Yeah.
that the Rockies don't wear anymore for some reason, despite having an open slot in their uniform rotation. Bring the vests back.
Yeah. Do something. Bring black back. Come back in black. And then Saturday, September 16th is the last thing they have on their schedule, where it's the Blake Street Bombers, Dante Bichette, Ellis Burks, Vinny Castilla, and Larry Walker. Fortunately, the big cat doesn't look like he's scheduled to appear. Maybe that could change. Who knows? That's at the end of the year, and they don't know what they're giving away that day yet. But it's good that they're doing something, but it's just disappointing that it's so spread out over the course of the season.
Yeah, they could be doing so much more. There are some really cool things. Like some of these guys that we're getting to see are guys that we don't normally get to see.
Mm-hmm.
Ellis Burks getting a shout out on that last day on Blake Street Bombers Day. That's really cool because I often refer to Ellis as one of the forgotten Blake Street Bombers, where you ask who are the Bombers, and he's usually the guy that gets left out.
Yeah.
I am bummed that no Big Cat on that day, but since he's retired, Big Cat's been fairly reclusive. He doesn't make a ton of public appearances. I think he just likes being at home with his family, which fine, I'm totally fine with. Having Cookie come out and DLR and Pedro Estacio, those are all really cool. And then Jason Jennings making an alumni appearance is also really cool. He's a guy that doesn't really get talked about anymore, but the first and only Rockies player to win the Rookie of the Year award.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What are there any other omissions on these that no, maybe things could change and guys can show up. These alumni appearances are subject to change. So I'm sure there'll be some changes in there. But of that initial list, who do you wish would show up or could get an appearance?
I'd like to get some guys from that 1993 team.
Mm-hmm.
Like doesn't even have to be huge names, but like Jayhawk Owen still lives in Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
That could be cool. Swift, Ruffin, Need, or even what I would have loved to see is a Don Baylor Day. And I've said this before that the Rockies need to celebrate their first ever skipper, Don Baylor, way more. And I think that they need to retire his number. But
I don't know if they need to retire his number, but just honor him.
Yeah,
put up his initials, like
the plaque thing up with the KSM thing.
Yeah,
because and Skyler, you wrote a really amazing series of articles about the life and times of Big Don Baylor, but he was so fundamental to the developing the identity of this team, and the fact that there's really nothing on here that includes or involved him, that makes me sad.
There's so many more days that you could do a Don Baylor Day, have a day celebrating your other managers. I'm sure you could dust off the corpse of Jim Leland and have him hobble out and smoke a heater on the field.
And then just curse and yell and cuss at you.
Yeah.
Just give him a mic and let him go wild.
Just have the nerve to say something.
But have y'all arrested for impersonating a baseball team.
Yeah. But I think expanded out more. Having more of those days. A 95 day. Bring back as many of, or celebrate the 95 team. See how many could come, because I'm sure a lot of those guys would. They're not doing much, I would think. Kurt Liskanek, a lot of these guys, what are they doing right now? Bring them in. Celebrate the 07 team. Plenty of guys to come in. We love talking about them. That seemed the Rockies love talking about them. Bring some of those guys in. The 09 team. I wish we could see Matt Holliday come back. Garrett Atkins. I'm sure they could get Brian Fuentes. What's Manny Corpus doing these days? Where's he at? What's he doing?
Not much.
Jeff Francis. Why isn't Jeff Francis on this list?
Canadian Baseball Hall of Famer Jeff Francis.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
Troy Tulowitzki, which would never happen, but
yeah. what's really a bummer is that the Rockies very much could have taken a page out of how the Marlins are doing this, where there's enough Rockies history that you could do a weekly day. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's Rockies anniversary Sunday, and this week we're doing this.
Yeah.
And they've done some cool stuff. Eric Young Sr. threw out the first pitch in last night's game. That was cool.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe they'll do more of that just isn't listed on the website. That's entirely possible. But a throwback uniform or hat or something would be super cool. The oft forgotten black alternate jersey from
93.
from 93 to 95 that Don Baylor allegedly hated having his players wear. The road pinstripes, which were one of my favorites. Or even just bring back wearing pinstripe pants with the alternate jerseys.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what they did for the longest time. I'm not unhappy that we have some cool stuff that we're doing this season, but there's so much more that they could have done and that they still could do.
Yeah, because you think of how many home games they have in a season, and what was it, 82, 81 home games, and then you take a Friday or something out of those series, a Friday or a Sunday. There's a lot more you could do.
Yeah.
No,
The fact
but
that there's 81 home games and they have 6 dedicated to the 30th anniversary.
yeah, most of them are on Saturdays and Sundays. You could have turned most of those Sundays throughout the season. Hey, we're celebrating so and so today or on this weekend. There's a lot more you could do. Throw in hopefully, maybe they do throw in more days. No, here's Matt Holliday and Ryan Spielborg's.
I mean, it's entirely possible because every now and then we see them add things to the promotional calendar throughout the actual regular season.
Mm-hmm.
But this is such an important year, and as we've talked about, fan apathy is a problem, and the Rockies are not expected to compete. It's expected to be another losing season. You need to hype up the 30th anniversary as much as you possibly can.
Mm-hmm. And get those guys to get people into the ballpark somehow.
Exactly.
Because you're going to get a lot of visiting fans. You got to get the homers in there somehow. Whatnot. Like Nolan Arenado is coming back this coming week or whenever with the Cardinals. I'm sure they'll do something there. Celebrate Arenado or something. But there's so much more in that history to celebrate. And it goes back to like we've talked about before. Just get a Hall of Fame. Do something like that. A Purple Jacket Club. Something. We saw the Rays just recently. They inducted Don Zimmer into the Rays Hall of Fame. And I think they just barely made their Hall of Fame this year, didn't they?
This is the first year.
Yeah. And they're younger than us.
Yeah, is it their 25th anniversary this year?
Yeah, probably something like that. Don Zimmer was our bench coach. Put him in our Hall of Fame.
We even highlight some really weird stuff. Ken Griffey Sr. was a member of the Rockies coaching staff at one point.
Mm-hmm. Bring back both Sandy Alomars. So much they could do. But, oh well.
Do an old timers game.
Man, that would be fun.
That would be a blast.
They'd never do it. But man, that would be fun. And that would go into like a Hall of Fame weekend type of thing.
Yeah. Like, but man, wouldn't you kill to watch Larry Walker, Dante Bichette, Vinny Castilla, Ellis Burks, and since you're not going to get Big Cat, Walt Weiss, somebody, and they all suit up in uniform and play a game of Rockies baseball at Coors Field? How cool would that be?
Or have them do like a home run derby type of thing.
I would
raise money for charity that way.
I would adore an old timers home run derby because we know Vinny can still crank that ball.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sure most of those guys could. But something like that. Always so much more they could do. But what can we do, unfortunately? But at least they're doing something. I think that's the moral of our story.
Yeah.
They're doing something. It'll be cool to look back on those. Some nice dates. Hopefully nice just celebrate some of those guys, and hopefully some more can hop on throughout the year too. Videos, other appearances from the Rockies, even if they're not showing up on a game day. No, they had videos from spring training of Matt Belisle and Brian Fuentes working with guys and talking about their time with the Rockies. Lots of other fun stuff.
Pedro
But
Stasio is a full-time coach with the organization down in the Dominican.
yeah, so he's got that and everything. But another helpful way to celebrate the Rockies as we close things out. Here's some little promotion tags now. Be sure to check out Every Rocky Ever, our new podcast here at Rocky Mountain Rooftop, hosted by myself and my brother Dustin. We had our first episode. It was just us kind of introducing ourselves. But our first episode coming out this Wednesday. So the Wednesday after you're hearing this episode on Monday will be our first official episode. And we're talking to the big cat himself, Andres Galarraga. And it's a fun conversation. My brother definitely geeks out about him a little bit. It's a fun conversation and fun to look back on these guys and how good some of these guys were. So you can always pay attention to that. Be on the lookout for that. Evan, where can the folks find you?
So you can find me on Twitter at Evan_Lang27. I would love to hear from you. I also am doing the Thursday Rock Piles most of the time over on Purple Row. Over on our YouTube channel, and we post these on our Twitter, which is at Rocky Mountain Rooftop. That's ROCKYMTNROOFTOP. I've been trying out something a little new where I'm doing 60 seconds or less little blurts of news via the YouTube Shorts format. Unfortunately, I had to take a week off from that this week, just having a lot going on, but I'm going to try and get those going again this week. You can also find us the official Affected by Altitude Twitter account, which is at Altitude Effect. And Skyler, where can we find you at?
You can find me at sideline_crowd, and then writing my Wednesday rock piles. And be sure to follow us all on social media. Be sure to like and subscribe this video if you're watching it on YouTube, and hit the bell so you get the notifications. Do we have any YouTube sponsors, Evan?
Oh, no way.
We don't have any of that sweet money yet. Anyways, but that's going to do it here for this edition of Affected by Altitude. Thank you, as always, for joining us. And until next time, Evan, hit him with it.
Farewell.
HelloFresh, sponsor us.
Raycon, please.
Raycon, please.
Was it Manscaped?
Dr. Squatch.
What on? You made that last one up. What? Dr. Squatch?
Yeah, with all those soaps and stuff. Smell like a man.